Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of the Uncle Greg Show and Podcast. I hope you and your loved ones are having a good week and that you're staying safe. Today's show is kind of I don't want to say dark show, but it is a sad show because it's going to focus on two special young ladies that took their own lives at different points of this year, and this being Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about both of them and I guess raise the awareness around the importance of addressing mental health issues, particularly with our family and loved ones, and the need for us to constantly check on our loved ones and not take anything for granted just because they tell us that they might be doing okay or they're doing all right. We have to ask ourselves, are they? And do what we can to ensure that they actually are. If they need help, and get them some help. And that also applies to ourselves as well. We shouldn't ignore our own mental health issues. We should be trying to do everything we can to stay in the best mental health shape that we can. We work on our physical health. We should be working on our we work on our physical health. We work on our spiritual health. We should be working on our mental health just as much. It's very important because no one wants to see or have to attend a funeral of a loved one, especially a child. You know, this is a parent's worst nightmare for something like this to happen. But we can do what we can and all we can to prevent it, and it can still happen. But I just want to dedicate this episode to Cheslie Kryst and Arlana Miller, and just spend a few minutes talking about mental health and suicide prevention and these two young ladies. So let's get started. In case you are unaware of these stories about these two young ladies, let me give you a brief summary. Arlana Miller was a freshman cheerleader at Southern University, and I guess the weight of the world became too much for her, and she took her life by drowning in the Mississippi River. But before she did, she left a social media post where she suicide note on social media. That's an issue in itself, but we're not going to deal with that today. And I guess I have a copy of it. I'm going to read it, read it in its entirety. So if it's something that might be too intense to listen to, I'd advise you to skip over this part. But so let me get started. It says, "May this day bring me rest and peace. I have fought this urge since my early teenage years. I gave this life all the fight I had. To everyone who has entered my life, I'm so grateful, and I can only imagine how this may find you. I have been surrounded by people who may have honestly thought that I was okay, but I haven't been okay for a while. I struggled so much through just this year alone, from COVID to tearing my ACL to nearly failing all of my classes. To the people in my life, I pray you learn to vocalize your feelings and get help always. I failed at that, and I'm afraid it's too late. Mom, thank you so much. I pray you know I'm at rest now. You would have given anything to see me happy. You have given everything to see me happy. I'm happy in the water where everything is still and peaceful. I have written so many suicide notes in my life, but finally, I've reached my end. I hope this teaches everyone to check on your strong friends. Be present always. I'm contradicting myself, but never give up. I know that I'm letting a lot of people down by what I'm about to do, but truth is, I've already let so many people throughout my life. Truth is, I've already let down so many people throughout my life, and it just feels unbearable. I've lost my connection to God. The devil seems to have won, and that is okay. I blame no one for this. I thank everyone for all they've done, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. But thinking about how everyone else would feel about my death is not enough either. I've tried to please and make everyone else happy my entire life. I've been dead inside for too long. To everyone I love, just remember that this is not your fault, and I pray you don't find guilt in my situation. To my granddad, I wish you were here to tell me I'm being stupid, to tell me it's not worth it, but you've left me and found your own peace. I've always been stubborn and prideful, just like you. I always dreamed of becoming so many things that I am today, but they just aren't enough. I'm not enough. I haven't felt enough for a while. But I say all this to say I'm done fighting. My battle is over, and I pray everyone finds peace in that. I think everyone should take a moment just to let the contents of this letter sink in. Uh, this is, in my opinion, a blueprint of a cry for help. And it seems it was a cry for help that came too late. She outlined a lot of different things that were signs or warning signs that she was suffering. And I'm not here to lay blame and say anybody missed these signs. It's just that it seems through her letter that the signs were there. But I guess the takeaway from this letter is it can make us strive to become more aware of what's going on in our loved ones' lives, to get to the root of issues they might have, and get them some help, and not take anything for granted. And just, if they say they're okay, we shouldn't automatically say, okay, well, they said they're okay, that's good enough for me. That shouldn't be good enough for any of us, especially those of us who have wives, sisters, daughters, aunts, and nieces. It seems that the depression and low self-esteem seems to be higher among the ladies in our community than the men. Not to say that there is not an issue with the men in depression or mental health, but there's definitely an issue with the sisters out there, particularly as it relates to self-esteem or low self-esteem. And that's something we should always be on the lookout for. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Have a discussion about it as well. Social media plays a large role in this, and it is something that is so superficial that it causes people to lose sight of what is real. Here's a young lady, just as the other young lady I'm going to speak about, that seems to have everything going for her, a bright future, just a special young lady. And in her own mind, it wasn't enough. And she felt like she wasn't enough. You have to ask yourself, where did that come from? And the fact that she put this out on social media gives you a strong indication. I mean, even looking at it, the time this was pulled off of social media, she had almost 4,000 comments. And this was posted within the first 5 or 6 hours of her post. The responses, the comments came within the first 4 or 5 hours of her posting it. And that tells you a lot right there. I'd love to go back through her social media account and see where all these social media friends were when she was going through all of this. And I'm not saying that this has been caused by social media, but I'd bet on the fact that social media had some bit of influence in this, particularly as she chose this as the platform to publish her suicide note. It's just sad. It's a loss of a special young lady, especially at such a young age. Second young lady I'm going to talk about is someone's story who is just as tragic, that being Cheslie Kryst, uh, a young lady who had accomplished quite a bit in her young life, include uh, getting her law degree and practicing law, but even more significant was the fact that in 2019 she was crowned Miss USA. Um, Now, you look back on her life, she had everything going for her. Law degree, Miss USA. She was also one of the hosts on a television show, Extra. One of the correspondents that they used. This was a young lady that seemed to have everything going for her. But as her mother said, she suffered from high functioning depression and had attempted to take her life before, when she was in her early 20s. So it's evident that this young lady had suffered with depression for a long time as well. She had even given interviews about her mental health struggles and the important thing, or the importance of talking to someone about it. She said the most important thing that she ever did in regards to her mental health struggles was talk to a counselor. Even so, it didn't seem to be enough. This was particularly sad in the way that she sent out her suicide note, in the fact that she texted the suicide note to her mother at a time she knew her mother was going to be in an exercise class and wouldn't get the message in time enough to stop her. And after she texted the message, she threw herself off the balcony of her 29th floor apartment in Midtown Manhattan. Needless to say, the tragic way in which both of these young ladies died is going to be a pain that their loved ones and family carry around for a very long time. It's just sad that you have two examples of successful young ladies who seem to have, emphasize the word seem, to have everything going for them. And in both cases, it wasn't enough. The weight of both of these stories, they hit me hard, especially considering the women in my life, and it made me act. I immediately went out and just started to get in contact with nieces, my daughters, other women that I know, and just check in on them, see how they're doing, to make sure that the weight of this world is not too much for them. And if so, is there anything I could do for them to help lift some of that burden? And I challenge you to do the same thing, particularly this being Mental Health Awareness Month. But we shouldn't just focus on that just this one month. We should always constantly be checking on the people in our lives that we care about, that even if we see them as being strong, because that could all be a facade, and we need to break through that facade if that's the case, and find out what they need to cope with what's going on in their lives. I've been watching the rise in our community in suicide, particularly on the younger end of the spectrum. We've had a tremendous increase of suicides among teenagers and young people in the black community. And I think it's something we should be more active or more proactive in addressing and getting these kids help. They've always talked about how, first of all, admitting that you have some type of mental issue or a mental health issue in the black community has always been taboo in discussion. Well, you continue to let it be taboo or refuse to discuss it, or even listen to someone who wants to discuss it, you're going to continue to see incidents like this. And that's something none of us should be happy about, or none of us should tolerate. So we have to learn to change that line of thought, and be more open-minded to listening to those who may be suffering and doing what we can to get them the help that they need. As I've said from the beginning, the Uncle Greg Show and podcast is all about the personal safety of our community. And this is a safety issue. Any type of health issue is a safety issue in our community, and it's one that needs to be addressed. And we all know that we can do a better job of addressing this issue. So as I said before, my challenge to you is to check on the mental health of your family and loved ones. Do a check up on them, see how they're doing. And don't just settle for the surface answer. Make sure you're getting to the bottom and you're getting the truth. Because as both of these ladies did, they could hide what's really going on. And you don't want it to be said that you missed something. So be proactive. Protect the mental health of those you love. And until the next time, may you and your loved ones stay safe. This is Uncle Greg.